Brian, welcome to the Done Solutions blog.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Appreciate you coming out. We've known each other for, probably 15 plus years now, and we've talked obviously a lot about Hardie siding products and other things, and we'd always talked about trying to get the message across of ColorPlus and the benefits and so forth. So I'm really glad we got together today to do a little bit of that. I was just hoping for the audience you could just share a little bit about your background, kind of where you grew up, education, job experience, so forth.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Chicago. Moved out to the Pacific Northwest in early 2001. So I'm a West Coaster now, officially, 100%. Okay. My background is actually, I've got sort of a construction and design background. So I spent a little time on the architecture side, got my degree in landscape architecture, and then transitioned into sort of building products back in 08, 09. So I think of myself as sort of a consultant, if you will, right? I've had some experience where I've actually designed. I've had some opportunities to actually build projects, but I love the built environment, and so very excited to be sort of helping individuals every day with construction.
Right on. And currently your role at James Hardie?
I'm the director of the Pacific Northwest, and so that basically encompasses Oregon, Washington, Hawaii. And so I've got a team of individuals out there, and we all work together to help support contractors, dealers, all the individuals that are out using our products.
That's great. That's always good to reference because this episode can get picked up anywhere in the world. So it's always nice we let people know we're in Seattle, whatever that means to anybody with respect to climate zone and so forth. The one thing I've learned from you over time is kind of the different iterations or generations of fiber cement. So maybe you could just talk about the company a little bit and how that's evolved. I know we've seen the same thing in manufactured decking episodes we've done where you really go back to how it all started and where we land today. So I'd love to hear a little bit of that on James Hardie.
Sure. So James Hardie is we're the inventor of fiber cement. And I guess the basics of fiber cement, it's a composite of a couple different materials, right? So cellulose fiber, we use cement. And what we're able to do is we're able to basically make a product that emulates the aesthetics of wood without some of the negative issues of rotting and corrosion or breakdown of wood. And so when you think about sort of the evolution over the last, I'll say 30 some odd years, because we are a relatively newer product if you think about it in the life cycle of building products, we developed and created sort of the original state of fiber cement. Okay, so that was sort of our first generation. No different than sort of the iPad, the iPod that evolved over time. We continued to evolve sort of generation by generation. So after we created the product, the next step was basically adding a primer. So the original product, if you would have bought it, let's say 15 or 20 years ago, you would have got basically a raw, unfinished product. So we developed a primer that would bond to the product so you could accept paint more readily. From there, we started to develop and work a lot on the substrate. We wanted to make it as flexible and as durable, right? Because a building envelope tends to move and shift. And we wanted to make sure that the product could move and shift. Unlike this cement table that we're on that could crack easily, we wanted to make sure that it had flexibility. The fourth step from there was then making sure that we really had the best adhesion bond to the product. And so we spent more time again on the primer bondage to the product, which really led us to what I'd consider to be a really big step change, which is ColorPlus. So it was actually taking a paint product and being able to apply it ourselves to the product.
Why we're here today.
Yeah, and I think the most interesting part about that is we're the only fiber cement manufacturer that actually pre-finishes their product in the U.S. and takes our own made paint and attaches it to the board.
Gotcha.
So from there, we've done other things like dynamic increased of product substrate, so the ability to make thicker and more robust products like trim products that, again, accompany it. So now that you've got a durable lap siding, you also have a trim for your corners or your windows and your doors that will continue that same type of product life cycle, so you don't have to mix and match a bunch of products on your home.
Gotcha. And could you touch quickly on the climate zone?
Yeah, and so what I'd consider to be sort of that 7th generation or our newest evolution would be what we call Hardie Zone. And what that is engineering the product for the right geography. So the product that we have here in Seattle is not the same product that you'd be purchasing or applying in, let's say, Chicago or the Northeast. What we're trying to do is make sure that we're really creating a product that can withstand whatever elements are within that geography. So for us, we deal with a lot of rain, right? So making sure that we've got a primer that can hold, because there's days where we're not able to paint if it's prime product, and we need the product to have a nice continued durability before it makes its way to the wall. So,
well, as a long-standing building materials seller in the Northwest, we really appreciate that, because so many products get made and they move their way across the United States and they get to Seattle and they fail. Because it's not a super harsh climate, but it is a different, very damp climate, and it causes all kinds of challenges.
That's right. Yeah. And so I think it is a unique thing. And when I think about other products, not just in the cladding space, there's very few manufacturers that have gotten to that level where they are looking at, well, what does the climate in a Seattle look like versus a Houston versus a Chicago? So I do think that's it's a real advantage for the people that use the product, because they know and they've seen that it can last and sustain itself in this geography.
Yeah. Well, I know, reading through some of your web content, just the primer, like I say, you don't have to reprime it. You really put a lot into that primer. Obviously, you want to clean it before they repaint a prime product, but
that's correct. Yeah. So we do spend a lot of energy making sure that we're maintaining the most consistent bond, if you will, right? So you think about paint and how paint adheres to substrates. It needs to be dry. It needs to be clean. And so we have spent a number of time and energy in research and development to make sure that we're maintaining the best primer. And then the advancing that into ColorPlus, the real advantage was taking the knowledge of that primer and then applying the right paint at the right temperature to really create that bond.
Yeah. And like I said, the reason we're here today is around the color story. And that has been an evolving, developing story over the last 5, 10, 15 years. So maybe you can just sort of touch on your take on that.
I think ultimately, when we think about ColorPlus, we know that it is the most durable solution that is on the market from a cladding standpoint. Because what we're providing is a durable substrate that is obviously weather tested and built to sustain itself in this marketplace. But we're also now adding a paint to it that is basically surpasses other paints that you can go and buy off the shelf in a store today. And I think over the years, what we've found that the average consumer that has experienced or has seen or has interacted with this product gets a number of enhanced benefits. Number one, they get a more durable exterior than if you were to buy a primed solution or our prime product and to field paint it. There's better fade resistancy, better bonding to the finish, no cracking, chipping, no peeling. And ultimately, I think what consumers really want, and I think we're seeing that whether it was pre-COVID and now post-COVID, this idea of low maintenance. We're living in these spaces. We want to enjoy our families, our friends. We want to do our activities. We don't want to be worrying about going out and having to repaint the house. And so what we're finding is the more people that understand that this is an available option and that can see the long-standing durability, there's no question when they sort of evaluate their options, that usually comes out at the most logical solution that reduces their maintenance and gives them, an outstandingly attractive home for years and years to come.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Colors. We've all been into a hardware store, a box store, and gosh, sometimes it feels like it might be 30 by 6 feet of color chips, and you're just glazing over.
Yes.
Seems like James Hardie has done a little bit of work to curate some different collections and present some options locally. Could you share a bit about that?
We have, and I've been through that, right? I'm a DIYer yourself, and I've painted interior walls before, and I picked that color yellow that seemed just perfect in the store, and then I put it on the wall, and it's not right. And I think a lot of us who have done any type of DIY type projects, they've experienced that. I think we've also driven down the street and sort of said, whoa, what color is that? Because maybe it looked a little out of place in the neighborhood, that eggplant purple or something odd. What we've tried to do is we've tried to make it attainable for the customer, right? We've tried to create a semblance of logical color options that we know are tried and true. We've worked with color experts to validate color trends. We've looked at paint on the wall in dark conditions, light conditions, rainy conditions, to really understand what's going to provide the longest, most attractive exterior. And so I think what we've tried to do ultimately is to provide a solution that says, hey, here, these are tried and true options for you. You don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel. We've got well over a dozen options for you that again, if you want a blue, there's a blue. If you want a gray, there's a gray. And you're not going to look exactly like your neighbor's house. There's enough options for you that you can sort of mix and match some of those colors together to create sort of your own unique setting.
Sure.
And we know that a lot of people, that's what they're looking to achieve now, right? Is how do I create an image of what makes sense for me?
Yeah.
So we've created sort of a couple different categories of color options. We have kind of a locally available solution that's in the market. So if you needed, a basic brown, a basic gray, a basic blue, those are all available today, and you can pick them up very quickly and easily. Okay. We then have created for those that have very specific needs, and we know that there are some different options in design where a customer says, hey, I want this specific black or this specific blue or gray. Yeah. And we've got up to 700 color options.
Wow.
We call it Dream because you can dream almost any color you want, and I guarantee you there'll be something close in that option.
There you go.
That's a little bit longer of a lead time because we're painting it to
it's a custom
order.
order. Well, I really appreciate you sharing this info in our intro episode, and I'm looking forward to recording a few more with you.
Absolutely. Sounds great.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.